Welcome to 17 Strong. Victories don't come by accident. Here's your host, Steve Teixeira.
Thanks, Andy. Welcome to another 17 Strong podcast. I'm your host, Steve Teixeira, along with my beautiful wife, Holly.
Hi, it's nice for you to be back.
Yeah, I
Last
know,
time I had a guest.
I know you had somebody much more beautiful than me sitting in this chair.
I have to agree.
Yeah,
I do have to agree with
and
that.
she is in Hawaii right now.
I know.
I'm not sure when this is going to be
Shout out
aired
to Brooke.
but,
Brooke Parker.
Brooke is in Hawaii on
She
her
helped.
victory trip.
Yes, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm sure she's having
Yeah.
a great time. I got a few pictures and it looks fun.
But sorry I couldn't be there for that.
I know.
But
That's good.
it sounds like it went well.
Yeah, it did.
Look forward
It
to
did.
watching that.
Yeah.
But today, a exciting opportunity for us to hear the story of how Knowing You Matter started. And we're honored to have in studio Cindy Kullman. Cindy, welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for
Thank
being
you
here.
so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We met maybe about a few months back, something.
Yeah.
Heard a lot about you. I'm sure you heard a little bit about us. We unfortunately have something, or we're part of a club that nobody wants to be a part of, right?
Yes.
But first of all, if you don't mind, just tell me about you. Tell me about you and your husband and how many children you have, and if you've born and raised around here.
Yep. Yes. Okay. So I was born in Southern California. And when I was 8 years old, my dad wanted to get out of the smog and moved to Paso Robles. So I grew up, in Paso Robles. Went to Cal Poly for 5 years. It took me 5 years.
Okay. Pretty normal, I think.
Met my husband in college, and we've been married almost 29 years.
Congratulations.
Wow,
Thank you.
We're right behind you.
We are.
29 years in October, actually.
Awesome.
And we have 5 sons. Well, we have one in heaven.
That's right.
And we have 2 grandsons. So
Nice.
Congratulations.
That's so exciting. Now tell
Boy
me
strong.
Yes, absolutely. And we're boy parents as
Yeah.
well, so we can relate.
Yep.
I always wanted a girl, but I guess God knew something different.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are their ages? How do they range?
So our oldest is 28. So we have a slew of August birthdays. So 28, 26. Mikey's birthday would be this month, 20. So he would have been 23.
Gotcha.
September 28th. And then Joey, it just turned 20. And then Danny is almost 15. Yeah.
Wow. So you got one in high school
One
still.
in high school, sophomore.
I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
Wow.
And he's at
Yeah.
Arroyo Grande.
He's at Arroyo Grande High
Okay,
School.
so what brought you to, obviously you went to Cal Poly, but
Yeah.
what brought you to the Arroyo Grande area and not go back to Paso?
I just fell in love with this area. I mean,
love it too.
going to Cal Poly, my last year, I lived in Pismo Beach and I just stayed. You know, it was
Yeah.
just like we were going to a church up in San Luis Obispo, and they encouraged 5 cities, people who were kind of living down in the 5 cities area to go to the church down here. So we did. We began to attend the Vineyard years
Awesome.
and years ago.
Great.
Yeah. So
Great
I just
church.
love the area, the weather.
Yes, I
the
know,
people.
right?
You can't beat the weather.
You can't.
The
Love
community.
Paso Robles.
Yeah.
But it's those triple-digit days
Yes,
that I'm
it
like,
is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
true. Great. But
Yeah.
your parents still live there.
They do.
Good.
Yes.
That's great. That's
Mhm.
awesome. So you get to
Yep.
go up there and visit and
Yep.
and they get to come down here. That's
Mhm.
awesome. That's
Yep.
great.
So as Holly alluded to, we're
Yeah.
unfortunately part of a club where we've lost a child before their
Yes.
time.
Yes.
And I know it's hard, but
Mhm.
why don't you tell our listeners about your son and what happened?
So Mikey was the middle son, right? Right
Mhm.
smack in the middle, 2 older than him, 2 younger than him. Mikey was so amazing. He was a people connector. He had tons of friends. He was an artist. He had over 100 pieces of art that he had
Wow.
done. Even in high school, there's a mural that's, across the hallway in the math lab that I believe is still there, that he
Wow.
personally did and was
Wow.
encouraged to do. He wanted to do it, of Einstein and some planets. It's just a crazy piece of,
Neat.
art that he produced. Mikey was a very strong Christian. He he graduated and then went on to Cal Poly. So he was attending Cal Poly, and he was leading Bible studies. He loved hiking and surfing, and he was just really, really active, and camping. He camped all the time with his friends. And he was just amazing. He was industrial technology major. He had so many different gifts that it was hard, I think, for him to hone in on what it was that he wanted to do. And then pretty much out from nowhere, I was trying to call him, and he always answered my calls. So right away I was like, I wonder where Mikey is. And I thought he was camping with his friends. And I asked a couple of friends, gosh, I don't know why Mikey's not calling me back. And it had only been literally a day, I mean, like a day and a half. And I went to go teach a tennis lesson, and it was still on my mind. He hadn't returned my call, and I kept trying to call. I took breaks off the court and would try to call again. And then I just got a sick feeling in my stomach after the lesson, and I called all of his friends. I called about 15 friends, and nobody had seen him. And I just knew. I called my mom, I called my husband. I was like, something's wrong. Like, Mikey would call me back, and none of his friends have seen him. And then one of his friends finally, I found out, had seen him going into Montana de Oro while he was driving out of Montana de Oro. And I asked his friend, well, was he with someone? And he said, no, he was by himself. And I said, are you sure? He's by himself. And at that point, a search team had gone out. They found his car. There was probably 150 people, friends, family at this point. It was just that mother's, like,
Intuition
something's wrong,
Right.
And he had taken his life. They found him, and he had taken his life. And it just rocked our worlds completely, turned us upside down. It was truly, I think, sorry.
That's
No,
okay.
we understand.
I think the hard part was there was just everything to love. And as a matter of fact, when everyone was searching and I was in the back room of my house, my prayer room, I had probably 40 people filtering back there. We were praying. We were, I didn't know at that time that it was suicide. I thought they'd found his car out there. I thought maybe he fell off a cliff. Maybe he drowned. Maybe he was surfing. I don't know, because he liked to surf and he wasn't a very good surfer. So I didn't know. I just never even once crossed my mind ever that it could be suicide. And so my husband didn't tell me until he called me from, when they were searching, and said, he's gone. He's with the Lord. And then when he came back, he told me that he had taken his life. And I was just in literal shock.
Sure.
Absolute. I didn't even know where to go with that. Literally did not know where to go with that. And I think the thing that Mikey was so lovable, literally the most, the person for real that, just always was connecting with people, reaching out. He was always like, just loved the lowly, just, he always reached out to the homeless. He reached out to people who were down. He had a friend that was in a wheelchair and constantly took him places. And he was just always the one to just love people. And so I had, and Daryl had, and pretty much everybody in our entire family and all of his friends, he just didn't have enemies. He just flat out didn't have enemies. And so it it was so, and still, it's like the shock level of it
Right.
was not only have you lost your child, but, he died by suicide. Like,
Yep.
how could this even be Mikey?
Right.
I
Right.
mean, just
Right.
Mikey, really?
Right.
Because there were no flags.
No, I mean, there was nothing. First of all, I didn't know anything about suicide. I really didn't know anyone, maybe a couple people who had
Right.
ever happened to.
Right.
So it
Right.
just wasn't even on our radar.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
He's coming
wasn't
from a
on.
loving family. He's a loving
Yeah.
kid. He's got friends. He's
Yeah.
going
Right.
to school.
Yeah.
I mean, everything
Yeah.
seems to be
Yeah.
going for him.
Sure. Yeah.
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 So,
Your grief is so much
Mhm.
different than our grief, but it's all grief.
Yes, it
yes.
is.
And,
Absolutely.
this is September.
Yeah.
This is
Mhm.
Suicide Prevention
Yeah.
Month. And suicide's an epidemic in this country,
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
especially right now with COVID.
Yep.
People have lost a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're allowing circumstances that they can't control to dictate the way they feel.
Yeah.
And they feel that suicide is the only way out.
Yeah.
And you and your husband have taken your grief,
Yeah.
similar to what we've done with 17 Strong,
Yeah.
and you started knowing you matter.
Yeah.
Which is
Tell us
remarkable.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. But let me just go
Yeah.
back a little bit just to say that Steve and I heard all about I don't even know how long the search went on, but we knew people that were part of the search, and we knew because it was on the news and it was pretty public to know.
Yeah.
And then I remember when they did find him, and knowing that
Yeah.
he came from a Christian family and a very well-rounded family, that everybody was a little just struck by that. Like, how can that be? How can it be? But I do believe that this community rallies around so well to allow you to have your space, but yet love on you at the same time. So,
Absolutely. Good point.
I just wanted you to know that we were a part of those prayers and those, because we understand what it's like, not maybe in the same circumstances, but it's still grief, and it hurts, and it's
Losing a child, nobody should ever have to
No.
experience.
no,
No.
and it's horrific. But I do love, and of course I did hear about you knowing you matter. So I'd love for you to talk about that and how maybe it developed and came about.
Yeah. Well, I was basically before Mikey, excuse me, I was in full swing teaching tennis. I started club tennis, and I had 12 years of just inspiring young people. Just, I played tennis my whole life, and I just love the game, and I compete and was loving that. But it was very interesting that in December, right before Mikey died, so it was December, I was talking to Mikey, and I was just saying, I love tennis and I love what I've done with the kids, but I just really feel like the grace is lifting. Like, I just feel like I'm going to be going in a different direction in 2019, not knowing that January 4th, 2019, this happened with my son. But I'd already felt a shift. And after Mikey died, I was sitting in front of the fireplace, which was right where we had our last conversation. And it just came over me that I'm going to do something with this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let the enemy win.
Yeah.
That beauty for ashes, that Mikey was that person that literally let everyone know that they mattered, and that I wasn't going to let this defeat me, my husband, my family, others, and that we would take the tragedy and do something positive to make a difference.
Absolutely.
We didn't really know, and my husband had the same thing. Daryl and I both. I mean, it was literally the first week that I was like, no, I just felt the prompting of God just saying, you're doing something with this, move forward.
Right.
And so we were grieving all along the way. And my husband felt the very same thing, even though he was in full swing doing business and everything. We began to drive to Los Olivos every Friday as we grieved together, him and I. We would go and have lunch together every single week for several months. And we began to just sit down with each other, pray, ask God, what do you want to do with this? Like, we didn't know. Well, first of all, what is the name of the organization going to be called?
Right.
We knew that it was going to have something to do with You Matter. We looked, we searched, we prayed, and we finally came up with Knowing You Matter. And we got it. We felt so good about it. A friend of ours was so wonderful. He was in our wedding. He was designed our logo, and he was so wonderful. And we just knew that whatever piece of this was going to be, we are going to let people know that they're loved, accepted, and that they matter, and that we can actually, one of the very first pieces, and that's where we met Nate, our video guy, both of us.
We both use him. We love him.
Yeah, we felt so strongly about telling our story to really break the stigma of suicide and mental health, because we realized that everybody struggles. We all have something in our lives, whether it be anxiety, depression, PTSD. Anything that we're struggling with, and not to mention being then shortly in a pandemic where people are isolated in their homes and struggling with many, many things. But we just felt super strongly about, beginning to just tell our story so that we could break that stigma of if other people were going through this, maybe they don't have the same exact story, but they could be struggling with their mental health, or maybe they lost someone to suicide like we had. That the more, there's so much shame that tries to attach itself to this topic. But that was one thing, because so many people ask me this question about shame. Well, do you feel ashamed? Or I will say this, is that I've been blessed in the fact that I decided to not let shame cover me.
Amen.
You know what?
Amen.
I love that
is
point,
so
because
good.
I know so many people
So good.
that have lost someone to suicide, and shame. I've never put a name to it, a word to it, and that's it.
That is it. And that is a choice. And I believe that, if you didn't make that choice, the enemy would have his way to get in there. And no, absolutely not. That is not going to happen. And I feel that I just love the fact that you're talking about things that people don't want to talk about. It's a hard subject to talk about, mental health. People don't want to talk about it. And it is so, people need it. We see it with people after cancer, life after cancer. They have PTSD. They need to talk about those hard things. And suicide is one of them that, we worry about with a few of ours, that, survival guilt also is a thing. So, but mental health is a big, big problem
in this country, period.
I agree.
Yes, it is.
There's so many aspects of things that go on that are not good, whether it be mass shootings, whether it be ordinary crime or assault or abuse.
Right.
It can be traced back to mental health.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a problem in this country, and we need to address it. And drugs aren't the answer, because drugs just mask an internal problem. We need to get to the root of the problem. And I don't know what that is, because I'm not a mental health expert, but I mean, your story shows precisely that it's a bigger problem, because you have a son that was loved, well liked,
absolutely,
and come from a loving family, and still did it.
Right.
So we don't know what the answer is,
right?
But we know that it needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. And you're putting yourself out there too, because that's huge. I would like, if you don't mind, to go. How did the other siblings deal with it? Because I am a firm believer that everybody grieves differently, and it looks different for everybody. And since you have 4 other kids, so what was that how did they deal with this?
I think first I would address like as a family, we were able to really come together individually. I can't speak on every
Sure.
one of my family members. I can speak. I'll start with the younger boys. I felt it's super important to get them in with a counselor. That
Mm-hmm.
we looked really hard to get the right person to work with them. And they began counseling. They also did some church counseling, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
of that as well. And they seem to be doing really well. The older boys have gone through a little bit of counseling. I tend to be a lot more verbal about my grief, but everybody
Mm-hmm.
processes so differently.
Absolutely.
And I think in the grief process as well, we've done some things together. We went up to our cabin to um, my whole family. We did a worship time together.
Mm.
We all ran around, 30 of us, all went around to talk about Mikey. We had his ashes up there. We had a moment together, all of
Mm.
us as a family, to all be able to go around and not just talk about our sadness,
Mm.
but just to be able to talk about some really good memories with Mikey too.
Mm.
So that's been a way of
Mm-hmm.
healing. And I think as we kind of provided that, way to be able to do that as
Sure.
a family, and everybody had that space, and we
Mhm.
just worshiped together. Our oldest son at the memorial, and this is one way I believe he helped him with his grief, was I asked him to sing a song. Could you sing a song, at Mikey's memorial? And I can't remember what song I asked him to sing. And one day he was, getting ready to play that song, and he was on YouTube and he found another song, and he began to weep as he listened to the song. And I think it had just come out, and like 12 doves just flew over his head at that moment, and he's weeping over this song, and it was called Raise a Hallelujah.
Mm.
And it says, up from the ashes, I
I
wish I
will
had,
arise.
yeah, hope will arise.
Mhm.
Death is defeated.
Defeated.
The king is
King is alive.
alive.
Mm.
And he sang that song at the 3-hour memorial service. And we stood up and we raised our hands and we just gave the glory to the Lord, that despite this horrible tragedy, because that's what it is,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it
Absolutely.
is the most gut-wrenching, hardest, most horrific thing that any parent could go through. It's undescribable truly what
Mm.
it is like, and you guys know, and we know the what it feels like. But to realize that even in the middle of the storm, that we could raise our hallelujah and know,
Mm.
we know where he is, we know where Ryan is,
Mm.
we know where they are, and that in the middle of the storm, I'm still going to raise my hallelujah to the Lord, that he is
Mhm.
still the King and the Lord of my life. And whatever happened, whatever the disconnect was, which I realized, and I'm going to speak on this, is that so many people came, and I was very open to people coming in. It was hard for me to go out for a while,
Sure.
but it was good for them to come
Mhm.
in. And after we lost Mikey, and talk, and so many people, why, how, this, aren't you mad, aren't you, and all of these things. And we tried to figure out why, how did this happen, how is this even possible, like
Mhm.
how did Mikey, Lord, what happened?
What was the trigger?
Right.
And I finally, about 3 or 4 months in, I decided a lot of it's a decision, that the why piece that I don't know the answer to was
Mhm.
not getting me any closer to my healing.
Right.
And it wasn't helping me
No.
navigate through my grief that I was going through
Right.
at that
And
time.
I'll agree to that.
I agree
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
don't
can't.
go there.
Why?
Yeah.
Whys are unanswerable.
Yeah. I don't go there.
If I
And-
had the answer, I would have told every person,
Right.
but I didn't have an answer.
Yep.
The closest I got to an answer was just my own speculation of Mikey was a caretaker. He loved people and he gave of himself always.
Mm.
And maybe he never really, and I still don't know that this is the answer, but did he ever really ask for what he needed?
Mm.
What he needed, that deeper need.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that I can really come up with, but I don't even know if that is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
So my answer is, I don't know. I don't know that I'll ever know,
That's right.
but
That's right.
I could still, I'm never going to move on from Mikey, but I will move forward in my life.
That's a great way to put it, because
Yeah.
we're the same way.
Yeah.
You know, you're never going to be completely healed.
Yeah.
You learn how to live and to
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah.
And it's a choice people have to make.
Mhm.
And, you know, we get asked that all the time. I think Holly was asked that last night. Hey, I've got, you know, a friend of mine that's in bed that
Yeah.
it won't get out, lost a young wife or a son or a daughter or whatever it is. What can you do? It's a
Mhm.
choice they have to make.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's a choice they have to make. You can encourage them and be
Yeah.
a supporter and say, hey,
Mhm.
come on, let's
That's
get out of
right.
the house. Let's go for a walk. Let's
Yeah.
do something.
Yeah.
But it's a choice.
Yeah.
Early on with 17 Strong, we got some very difficult hate mail. And it was from people that were hurting.
Yeah.
And you could see the hurt coming out in the mail.
Yeah.
And it was like nobody cared when this happened to me. But
Mhm.
that was their choice.
Mhm.
Yes.
We have
Mhm.
made a choice to move forward.
That's right.
And it doesn't mean starting a nonprofit's for
Mhm.
everybody,
Right.
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but go do something in that person's honor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go do a cancer walk.
Yeah.
Go volunteer at, you know, a community center.
Yeah.
Do something
Mhm.
that you can put
Yeah.
the memory of that person
Right.
That's right.
on a pedestal.
That's
That's
right.
right.
And
That's
it's
right.
your choice,
Mhm.
Yes.
you know, and,
Yeah.
and life is all about choices.
It is.
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
And, you know, you can sit there and wallow in your own pity
Yeah.
and cry and grieve and
Mhm.
grieve and grieve.
Mhm.
Or you can say, you know what? I understand the hurt might never go away, and it
Yeah.
won't,
Right.
but I'm going to learn to live and I'm
Yeah.
going to learn to move forward.
Amen.
That's right. That's
That's-
right.
So,
That's
that's-
so good.
and speaking of moving forward, you are
Mhm.
doing your first conference.
Yes.
We have a little flyer here. It's called
Mhm.
the Knowing You Matter Conference, and you're
Mhm.
going to have some special guests.
Mhm.
And it's a 1-day mental health conference.
Yeah, it's 5 to 8, September 25th at Grace Bible Church, and we're having a mental health, suicide prevention, and just some organizations to connect to for young people. It's for any age,
Awesome.
and we're going to have probably 18 different organizations. We're so excited.
Yeah.
And then we're just going to have, you know, that fair. We're going to have some great food too.
Good.
Charcuterie board. We're going to
Awesome.
have, and then we're going to have a speaker. He's amazing. Sam Anthony Lucania. He's coming and he's just going to give a great message on he's going to tell his testimony.
Oh, great.
And so no matter what people are going through, whether it's, like I said, anxiety, depression, PTSD,
Mhm.
anything that
Right.
somebody's struggling with in their mental health, that the message is really, you're not alone. You matter. There's help for you. There's hope for
That's
you.
right.
Yep.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
is this for just survivors, or is this for anyone?
This is
that's
absolutely anybody.
Good.
Mhm.
This you know, through our organization, Knowing You Matter, we have, you know, 3 different groups that we're targeting, which is the suicide loss survivor,
Mhm.
the one who's attempted and survived, and also those that are struggling with their mental health and are struggling with
Yes.
suicidal thoughts. But the beautiful piece is that we're going to, through some documentary work and these different interviews with different people, they're going to tell their stories.
Yes.
And it's a hope message, though. It's a
Yeah.
hope that no matter what someone's struggling with, that there's hope and there's
Absolutely.
resources out there.
Mhm.
Yes.
That a lot of times, like as parents, as people going through different mental health things, we don't know what the resources are.
Right.
And so I've been part of the SLO County Suicide Prevention Council, where there's all these different organizations. And so I've been learning on Zoom,
Mhm.
you know, through COVID, you know, all these organizations that we have out there, like the Central Coast Hotline and
Yeah.
Transitions Mental Health and American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, and all kinds of organizations that I never even knew about.
Right. Right.
So I am so excited about a lot of these organizations in our community coming out.
That's
So it's a
amazing.
community-wide event for anyone. For
That's
anyone.
That's great.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
That is
congratulations
awesome.
on that.
We're
And
excited. Yeah, for
that
sure.
again, that is Saturday, September 25th from 5 to 8 p.m.
Yep.
Yep.
at Grace Bible Church in Arroyo Grande, California.
Yeah.
Um,
That'll be
and
awesome. That'll be great. I really
Mhm.
feel. But another thing I wanted to talk about just a little bit is your book. It's
Mhm.
The Valley of Grief. I I know that we've talked about this a little bit, but why don't you tell us a little bit about it and how it came about?
Mhm. Well, just as like at the very beginning when I was sitting in front of the fireplace and it was like, you're going to do something with this, and we started the foundation.
Mm.
Just as soon as that happened, and I began to journal as I was going through counseling, I had the best counselor ever, and she talked a lot about journaling, and I began to just pretty much journal my random thoughts, and
Did you journal before? Were you a
not I I've always been one to write out my prayers, but not so much journaling my
Okay.
personal experiences.
Okay.
Um, I I just the feelings and emotions were so strong, as you
Mhm.
guys know what it's like
Yeah.
to lose a child. I didn't even know where to go with it. I didn't know what to do with everything that was inside of me. And so every time like a really intense emotion hit me, and
Mhm.
it could be, I have them titled in there. They are literally titled randomly as they came. It
Oh.
could be feeling alone.
Oh yeah.
You could have people surrounding you, but in it all,
You're
you
alone.
feel alone.
Mhm.
So they're very raw journal entries. They're not pretty. They're exactly what I went through, unedited. But I attached a scripture to the for the day for each journal entry. So alongside of my raw journal entries is a scripture for the day, and then a thought for the day that I actually applied to my life. Like,
Mm.
although that I'm feeling these feelings, God has whatever it would be, truly comforted me, and whatever the thought is. And I just felt super impressed to move forward to put this to print,
Mhm.
because I just I felt when I was trying to navigate through my own grief, I wanted to read something that was somebody's personal experience. I didn't
Yeah.
want to read a clinical
Yeah.
book on grief. Like,
right,
oh, first is this step. Okay, yeah, I
Mhm.
get all that, but it wasn't where I was at.
right.
Right.
Tell me about somebody that's
Yes.
gone through this.
Yeah.
Exactly. There was
Mhm.
one book, or there was one devotional that somebody had given me, and it was somebody's personal experiences. And that was the only thing that
Mhm.
really hit me. So I began to just do my own, like, okay,
Right.
I'm just going to put this to paper. And so it was so healing. It
Oh.
was
Mm.
so healing for me to just, and so I've been giving that to a lot of suicide loss survivors, along with our hope bags, which is what we're doing through our foundation, is Knowing You Matter hope bags.
That is what I wanted you to talk about too. That
Yeah.
just segued right
Yeah.
into it. So tell us a little bit about, because I know
Yep.
that was kind of developed because somebody gave you something, and then
Yes. Hmm.
tell me about that, the hope
Yeah.
bags.
Um, Very early on, probably the first week or second week after Mikey, and I didn't really open a lot of things that came to the door, because I
Mm.
was just,
Oh, I
how
know. Yeah.
you're just devastated. But a couple of friends had said, "Look at this basket, Cindy," and somebody had left this basket at the door. It had immunity tea, vitamin C packs, books on grief. It had just comforting things.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I said, "Well, open it up." And they opened it up and made me some tea. And I actually used everything in there, because I felt like, with all the crying and grieving, I felt like my system was failing. I mean,
Oh.
and I'm a really healthy person, and I just wasn't doing that well
Mhm.
Right,
physically
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
speaking. And so as Gerald and I were, starting the foundation, I said, I really feel we should do. I initially didn't call it a hope bag. I called it a grief basket, but we changed that to, we wanted to put the word hope on the bag. And so we called it a Knowing You Matter Hope bag. So we are now getting it into Cal Poly and some of the schools. We're giving it to different partnering organizations. And within the bag, we have a stress ball, a journal, immunity tea. We have a beautiful cup. We have vitamin C pack. We have a personal letter that we have written to the individual. And then we have a card in there with a QR code where they can scan it and get resources for the particular
Wow.
things that they're struggling with, that has resources. And so I've been actually even personally giving out these hope bags to suicide loss survivors, a lot of parents who have lost children. And it has just been so powerful to give somebody one of these bags and to say, and sometimes not say anything, and just say, you're not alone. I'm
So
here. We're
important.
here.
That's right.
We're here. You're not alone.
That's right.
You know, and sometimes, because when I first lost Mikey, the very first thing I wanted was to talk to somebody who'd actually gone through losing a child by suicide, because it was so intense of a thing. And I finally did find someone, and it just was powerful for me to be able to talk to somebody who had gone through the exact same thing that I went through.
That's interesting. That's so interesting, because I remember Ryan would not want to talk to somebody that may not be on the same page as he was. You know, he's like, I don't know where that person is in their faith, and I don't know where that he didn't want anybody to talk to him that was going to bring him down. He wanted to be lifted up, or he was always the encourager to be able to go, nope, my faith is this way. I believe this, and no one's going to tell me different. So that's where, that's great that you were able to find somebody and find somebody that really resonated with your story, and and that you did with theirs, because sometimes you just don't see things at the same level or the same so that's important. But that's amazing. I'm glad that you were able to get the help that you needed. But also, I do know that I have had to reach out to you a couple of times just to get some resources, because I wasn't familiar with the resources in our community, and for, you know, Victory Trip recipients or possible Victory Trip recipients that were in the pipeline and stuff. So I believe it's such an important thing, and it's so good that we're talking about it, and doing a conference and being able to, you know, have resources at your fingertips.
I agree.
Yeah.
How do people get in touch with you? How do we sign up for the conference? And if they're have someone that needs help, what's the best way to reach out to your organization?
Yeah, and you can go to our website at knowingyoumatter.org, and just, this is a free conference, so you can get free, you know, just you can RSVP through, it'll link you over to the Eventbrite, and you know, and if just go straight to our website, and you can get every
Okay. And then also, if I'm not mistaken, you guys are going to do a fundraiser. I believe that's later on in the year. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because I know it's, please do.
Yeah, right here at Thousand Hills Ranch.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. That's
right
awesome.
after ours, I think.
I think it is. Or before, whatever.
Yeah, so November 20th, and it begins at 4:30. So it's called Harvest of Hope. Again, we have the word hope in there.
There you go.
Yeah, and we're doing a live and a silent auction and a dinner.
Good.
And so we'd love for anybody who could come out
That's
to
awesome.
come support.
That's
the
good. And
cause.
this is your first. This will be your first
dinner.
That's awesome.
Very
Good.
good.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad.
you.
So I'm sure that the details will get a little bit.
They'll get.
Yeah, we'll have more details.
We'll have Nate put some information on our website on how to get a hold of Knowing You Matter.
That's
But
right.
Cindy,
That's
it's been a
right.
pleasure.
It's been
Thank
so
you.
good.
Thank you so
And,
much.
you know, we grieve with you over your loss. We understand. And, you know, I think what you're doing for mental health and for survivors
Thank you.
and people that are struggling with mental health is incredible.
Thank you.
So we wish you all the best with
sure.
Knowing You Matter. And,
Thank you.
you know, I'm sure we will be partnering with you in the future.
I definitely
Thank
love
you.
having you as a resource. So thank you so much.
So thanks to our studio engineer,
Yes.
Mr. Nate Hand.
Thank you.
As always, we need a little round of applause in the
Yes, we
background.
do. We do.
But with that, we'll wrap up another 17 Strong podcast. And thank you again
Thank you
to
so
our
much.
listeners, to our supporters. Thank you.
Yes.
And remember, attitude is everything.
You've been listening to 17 Strong. Victories don't come by accident. To be part of the show, make a donation, or request more information, go to 17strong.org. That's SEVENTEEN strong.org.